Thank you. As my name is Abigail De La Mora, I'm the Institutional Effectiveness and Planning Officer with the Office of Performance Excellence at Texas A&M University-Kingsville. So this presentation, it's more than technology. It's how we engage with people, sustain processes, and making information accessible in ways that support our teams. SharePoint became the tool that allowed us to build that centralized space where people could learn, connect, and access resources without information getting lost in emails or in various folders on our desktop. So most institutions don't struggle because they lack information. They struggle because people don't know where to find it. Resources, maybe they're available, but they're not easy to access, and there's systems in place that aren't designed with the human experience in mind. Our goal for our department wasn't just to create a site, it was to create a space where people actually wanted to use. So I want to start off by giving some context as to who we are as an institution, for those of you who are not familiar with us, and our journey to using SharePoint. So we are the first university in South Texas, as well as an original HSI. 80% of our students are undergraduates, and we serve rural and urban communities with a student population size about approximately 6,900. Our signature programs are teacher preparation, as we were originally founded as a teaching school or a normal school in 1925, which we just celebrated our centennial for that. We also have engineering and agriculture, definitely agriculture, being that we're in close proximity to the King Ranch, which is the largest ranch in the US. Prior to 2022, our campus was suffering from declining enrollment, leadership turnover, and a lack of strategic vision and coordination. Like most journeys in higher education, ours started with significant leadership change. In June of 2022, Dr. Robert Vela became our 22nd president and launched a period of significant transformation on our campus. We developed a new mission, vision, shared values, and strategic plan. We also launched university-wide initiatives such as the Four Disciplines of Execution, or 4DX, developed by Franklin Covey, and Caring Campus Framework, developed by the Institute for Evidence-Based Change. All while we were going through all this change and implementation, we were also going through our SAC-COC reaffirmation of accreditation. And we did this all at the same time, so talk about building the plane while we were flying it. And I'm happy to report we were successful in our reaffirmation, so that was the positives. Um, so with the challenges that I had mentioned earlier, we had no time to waste, and that's why we implemented things so quickly, within a span of a couple of years. So, with all that change, information needed to be sent to faculty and staff quickly and easily to help promote transparency in all these changes and processes, as well as to bring in buy-in for these changes, because these were significant moves, significant initiatives, and so we needed people to feel confident in the process. So, with that journey, and thinking of those challenges that we had, we started with a few questions. How do we make those resources and information easy to find? And how do we support the teams consistently with all these new changes and all the information? Instead of creating multiple systems, we used something that we already had, which was SharePoint. SharePoint allowed us to centralize the resources in one location while creating engaging pages that allowed for all types of learners while ensuring that internal information stayed internal. We had a lot of information that from those organizations that I had mentioned that was very proprietary, as well as data that we really don't want the public to see, for various reasons. A huge benefit was that we already had a university-wide license in place for SharePoint, so it was no extra cost for us. So if a site looks like a filing cabinet, people are going to treat it like one. The goal was to create something that was more like a learning platform than a storage system. This meant clean navigations, visual elements, clear categories, and short pathways to learning. So I'm going to take you to our live site and show you some of the features that we had added to there for the different areas. So let me go ahead and exit out of this and take us. So this is our SharePoint site for the Office of Performance Excellence and Strategy. We have just a landing page just talking about us. And then we have the different pages here, different navigations of the various initiatives. These have all developed in time. We didn't build all this out in the beginning. I think the first page was the page you're seeing right now. Very basic, very minimal. We started with SAC-COC, and then as we've progressed with things, as information became available, we have added on pages. So some of these are in various levels, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the one that I feel is the most up to date. It has the most features to it, just to show you some of the capabilities we had, which was our 40X page. So at the time with learning 40X, getting the resources and everything, the page originally started as a data dump. It was just files and links and maybe some graphics here and there, but it became overwhelming to our users. So I believe last summer, I went in and really looked at the page and saying, okay, what do we need and how do we need to organize it? So our main page obviously has Franklin Covey material on there, utilizing some of their videos. But we do have individuals that learn at different levels and everything. We're always constantly having new employees onboarded. So we wanted to create a section that is just understanding the framework. What is the framework of 40X for those who don't know? And so that's a space for them. We also wanted to create a resource center where all the checklist, guides, spreadsheets, any kind of resource to help them once they're in it as team leaders, as team members, utilizing some of the Franklin Covey language, being able to give them these quick on-demand resources because they don't need to know the foundation anymore. They don't need to know the framework. They know that. Now it's helping them do their job. Then we had a whole subset of people that I know how to do what I'm doing for 40X. I understand the framework. I just need data. I just need the data to help me develop my new WIGs, which are widely important goals, or just to update my data, enrollment data, retention, things like that, which is our focus right now. So this way they can easily do that. And then we do have a space for contact information, which is really nice because we have, in our case, 40X coaches. These are the resources that they can reach out to. We can see faces to help them out. And if they hover, they can see their emails, phone numbers, things like that. So it's easy for them to be able to contact the people that they need to contact. So let's take a look at understanding 40X. So one of the things we used to have in the beginning, informational sessions, being able to go through, obviously it is expensive to bring Franklin Covey personnel to our campus to train. So we trained leaders, but we kind of noticed that as you go down the hierarchy, the information starts getting watered down or even interpreted a lot differently. So we wanted to create a site where we go through each of the disciplines. That's what's the main here. And then going into explaining what is a widely important goal, what are the characteristics of it, providing visuals, resources on developing things. So really going into each of the disciplines and allowing individuals to kind of explore and learn that. We also wanted to provide examples. This was something that we didn't have more, but as we're going in there, examples of physical scoreboards that our teams are doing, because a lot of people are like, I know I have to do a scoreboard. I know what the components on there, but how are people actually doing this? And we're able to show that. And so here, discipline 4. So although we had all this content in there, a lot of teams were saying, I wish you would go back to those sessions and everything so I can send my new employees. That would require me, the coaches, to pretty much do it almost once a month because we always had new employees coming in practically once a month. And it's a lot. It's a lot to do and everything. So I created this playlist where we have our president's message where he's explaining, straight from our leader why we're taking on this initiative and introductory videos to those disciplines where they can really understand it's the same material that I would have given out to them if I would have held those sessions. So it's a playlist and they can click play And they can go through the playlist or pick one of the disciplines or all the disciplines, also having a section on their roles. They can request a custom session. When they click on this, it sends an email to me saying what they would like to do. So making it accessible to teams, to leaders, to new employees, whether they want to read it off of the website or actually listen to videos. So let me go to our resource page. Oh, here, I'll go this way. And this is for our leaders that are already in it. They understand the framework, and now they just need support to help them do their day-to-day processes within 40X. So we have this top navigation that'll take them to the different sections, information, worksheets, PowerPoints, anything that we can possibly think of to help support them, as well as guides. And a lot of these things too is, it links back to the original site. So yes, we talk about one of the components is creating quality commitments within 40X. And so now we're showing them how to do it and how to make quality ones, but maybe there's still that disconnect of why they're doing it. They can click on here and that takes them back to the discipline that it referenced to. So that way, maybe it has a situation of they don't necessarily need help on how to do it. Maybe it needs to go back to the basics. And so they can always go back here and get that fundamental information as they're learning it, they're like, wait, I have no idea what this is. Let me go back to the basics. So a lot of information again, trying to keep it in the sections that are most, and these ones for the resources were picked out of what the questions as coaches, as leaders that we were getting from our teams that were like, okay, we need some more additional support or help because people are getting confused. Franklin Covey does have a software called 40XOS. It's not the best software, I'll be honest about that, but I don't think any software truly is. And so it does have guides, but it's a PDF manual, of information. There's not videos. And a lot of our learners really had requested, I wish there was a video to help me walk through, not just tell me, click here, click this, go to the left, things like that. And so I created videos of how to do things within the software that made sense for them because we were still learning some of the language within the framework. And so obviously their software was very heavy with their language that our teams were just not familiar with. So how to conduct these things. And then taking some of the components that were the most requested from the manuals and making it in our language. It's very interesting. They have information on how to log in, but you have to log into the software in order to access the guide on how to log in. So making sure that was the first thing we needed to have on there and creating that there. How do you even log into it? How do you set up out of office? Because those were the things and the questions that needed. And instead of filtering through their manual, which was several pages, taking it and it's just that pull out of their information. This is an area that I'm wanting to go a little bit more detailed in is some deep dive videos talking more about best practices, things like that, trying to help teams supporting them of what to do when things are not going as well as they hope. Setting goals was a big thing for us of teams just really not understanding how to utilize their data to determine what their pain point is on there. So creating those videos, and it is something that wanting to expand. I do have this option here. It'll send me an email of if they need additional training or are there videos that maybe I'm thinking don't need to be covered that our users actually do. So that way they can request those and I can build them onto my list of, things to add to the site. We do have a frequently asked troubleshooting questions, which is really nice because they can click here and it gives them the answer as well as going back to the information. So this is a question that they always ask, do I have to create a physical scoreboard? Yes, All units have to do it. And because you have to do it, here's the link to show you how to do it. Now you know that you have to do that. The second question that's going to be that will pop into their head is, okay, well, now that I know I have to do it, how do I do it? And if you click here, it takes you back up to the page, and here's that section on the scoreboard library of how you can build it and what some examples are. So keeping that in mind as developing, as we scroll down here, we're back into that section. And so that's where they can be able to, keeping that human aspect in mind. If I were to ask this question, what would be the next response for them? Well, they're going to need their info, need to understand how to go ahead and do that. Another side that I think this group might be interested in is we have our institutional effectiveness plans. This site is not as, I guess, in depth as the other page on here, but we do offer more one-on-ones. On my email, I have a book with me link, and so I do offer more consultations with this one. So that's why, because every team is kind of unique, but we do have our deadlines, reporting requirements. And then I have, we do utilize anthology planning for our assessment. And so we do have playlist going through there. I know anthology does have its own support site and videos, but we wanted catered videos to our templates, to our questions. So yes, it's how to navigate to the site, but it's also going in there of this is what we would like you to, how we would like you to answer, what we would like you to attach to it. And then we do have questions regarding, because we are with SAC-COC for standard 8.2C, because this was a new standard for a lot of our teams that are struggling a lot with it. So providing examples and support. We do have a page for our council that kind of oversees this, where we have our memberships, who they are, the review process, because they do review those IEs and collective review. So same thing. Yes, there are videos within Anthology, but having it more dedicated to our rubrics and our timelines on there. And then they have their meeting information, which we do make it public to all individuals. This council doesn't operate in silence. So I don't know if most employees look at these minutes and look at the info material, but it's there if they want to, if they're interested to see. I think this committee in the past has been operating in secret in a sense that most people, they know the committee exists, they know there's members, and they probably have a representative from their college, from their division, but don't really know what this committee does. And so we have been, no, we have it on this page towards the bottom. Okay, it's not going to go there. Of explaining what that membership is and everything like that. Just be more transparent with it, that these councils, these committees, they do work. It's very important work. And they are individuals that you can reach out to support. I think it's been our office that has been the go-to for trainings, for questions and everything, but really we're just operating within the council and supporting the council. And so you can talk to the council members who are in here who do help develop these rubrics, develop these templates, provide those impact or those evaluations for the teams to be able to do those. Before I jump back into the PowerPoint, are there any questions or anything else on our sites that you would like for me to show?
I'm just curious, how long did it take you to build everything out? Or did you build it out yourself, or did you have some folks help you?
I did build it out myself.
Hmm.
Um, it's hard to say how long it took because these were, evolutions of it.
Right.
So I would build off pieces of it, and then so we would build off. I think I can go ahead and click at it here. So, you can add your text here. So,
Right.
down here, probably added these sections. So it was me adding a section at a time and
Hmm.
expanding on it. And then I can click I can move. If I wanted it to go up here,
Mm-hmm.
I can move it up here. I can move it down. So as I was building stuff, uh, discard changes. So that way you can go ahead and do those things. You don't necessarily, so it's hard for me to really say how much work it took
Right.
on there because it was just building upon everything. The biggest one was this 40x one because I was taking, because it was just one 40x page and all the material we have here was in one page. So it was a long page that I had to scroll. This one took a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more time because I had to create the pages,
Mm-hmm.
understand what I wanted to create, and then see, okay, what needs to be in understanding 40x, what needs to be in the resource center, and then moving those things over.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. We did have also a question in the chat asking if you could show how a user would go in and submit their IE/assessment report.
So the IE reports and everything are done within anthology planning. So they go into the software there, they're able to fill out those templates. And so there isn't necessarily a submit button in anthology planning because they are live sites. It's intended to be where people can continue to build upon their report. So they establish their plan. We set a deadline and we tell teams, okay, at that point we're pulling the reports to migrate them over to collective review for the evaluation. But that site or that template is still there. So as they're able to get their results, maybe they get their results in the mid-spring, over the summer, they can go ahead and then do their reporting part of it within that site. So it's all within Anthology. We don't utilize SharePoint for that, at least for IEs. Now, for PSLOs, that has not migrated yet to Anthology. Hopefully, it'll be migrating soon. This is a site that's still under development and everything. But here we have them where they submit into folders depending on their college of where the degree plan lives. They all have access to it. But what happens with these submissions, I don't know if it's going to show. It's probably not going to show here. So when they submit it, the folder is tied to a Power Automate workflow to where when they submit it, it comes to me for approval to accept that submission and then go ahead and move to another folder that our teams that our assessment and accreditation officer has, and moves those Word documents, their Word documents, into
Mhm.
collective review for the committees to go ahead and review it for those. So we've done it that way. Eventually, this will migrate over to anthology planning to utilize the reports, but this is where they can go ahead and submit those in there, and it triggers pretty much quickly. As soon as that Word document comes in, Power Automate picks it up and moves it over to the next one. And then it also sends an email confirmation saying, thank you, we have received your PSLO report for this particular program. So it automatically sends that message versus me having to manually send that. So that's the only one that we actually utilize SharePoint for that, but most of our stuff we utilize Anthology planning, Anthology collective review.
Thank you, Abigail. I guess follow up on that,
Mhm.
since you are moving this out of this environment into anthology, is there an advantage to using anthology for all of your, educational program assessment reports and your non-educational as well, kind of out of SharePoint into that third-party platform?
I think there's some plus and minuses to it. So one of the things would be in that we can, in most cases, for most degree plans, they're going to keep the same program goals, student learning outcomes. We can roll those over each year, um, and not have to have them build it from scratch. Now, they don't necessarily have to do that now if they utilize like the same Word document and just copy the document and everything. But one of the benefits is, we do have program coordinator turnover. And it's from our faculty, and sometimes those faculty are not necessarily sharing information with the new coordinator. And so, at least with anthology planning, everything lives in there. We just pretty much have to just change users on there, and they can go in there and they can see what was done before and everything like that. Now, where the pitfall is, in my opinion, is for there's not a correct a connection between planning and collective review. So for planning, I have to manually download what we call grid reports that have all the outcomes, all the results, all the information on there, download those and manually add them into collective review. So, and it's weird and it's something that allegedly anthology is going to work on eventually, but they say everything is connected, but it only connects in some ways. So you can export things from collective review into planning, but planning cannot go into collective review. And it's something that anthology users have asked. If anybody in this call uses anthology, I'm sure you understand some of these nuances and everything with it. That's kind of annoying that I'm like, okay, you guys have the same systems, but whatever. But that's the only thing that is going to be the same regardless of whether we use Word documents or planning and everything. Um, but yeah, but the only thing is having it available, being able to see from the multiple years on there and not losing that information or having to, let me go to the file folder, let me email you the previous years.
Mhm.
When we change department chairs or change program coordinators, they can access it, and they're not having to hopefully get that material from another person within their department that may or may not have it or is willing to share sometimes. There's some of those situations that happen.
That's an interesting problem to have that, every year the plans and the outcomes kind of stay the same, but the results is what changes and needs kind of an annual update. Have you tried using Microsoft Lists or Microsoft Forms or some other Microsoft product to maybe, cr- I guess create a version of a document or resource where you would kind of say like, here are your outcomes, here are your plans. Please fill out the form below with your most recent updates.
We haven't, and this
Okay.
process, I'm a reviewer on it, but I don't really
Okay.
facilitate it as much. My colleague does do that one. I've seen from this group, utilizing list. I have been trying to utilize that
Okay.
for some of those. I have some that we're using where, for our new 40X wigs, they have to submit a form for approval of what their wig is going to be, their lead measures, their timeline, things like that because 40X is very prescriptive in its format. Wigs need to be from X to Y by when. It's within 6 months, aligned with our university goals and everything. So it does go through an approval. They submit the Microsoft form. It goes through an approval process through Power Automate for their supervisor and their 40X coach to ensure quality, both in the actual goal alignment with divisional strategic plans, things like that, as well as following the 40X framework, which is our coaches verify. And then I manually add those into 40X OS, the Franklin Covey software that we have utilized. And then we utilize the list to help populate those. So it pulls the information that is from the Microsoft form that allows users to go ahead and see what those submissions are, easy to review since forms, you can't necessarily give everybody access to it. And, I trust people to a certain extent, and maybe that's on me, but giving them access to it also gives them the ability to possibly delete things. Not saying that they're going to do it maliciously, but maybe they clicked the wrong thing and they deleted the submission that came in, and now we lost what that person actually did, having to tell them to do it again. At least with the list, there's a lot more access protections that I can put on there so they can still
Okay.
see the content in order to approve it through the Power Automate workflow without editing anything or tampering with stuff. So we've done that very little, and I thank this group for helping motivate us to do it. And it is something that if we decide not to continue with anthology, considering utilizing lists. And I did attend y'all's workshop yesterday with Power BI, which I was like, oh my gosh, I want to utilize this. So eventually I'm hoping we can transition to those things. But like I said, I'm not necessarily the coordinator for this side of it. For IEs, I can see us definitely utilizing something like that if we were to move out of anthology planning. And that's something that our office is considering, obviously, with cost. And then if you live in the state of Texas, we have issues with text ramp, accessibility, things like that. And so those are things that we have to consider.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for taking up so much time.
No, it's good questions. I'm sure others also are interested as well. Anything else from the group before we move on? All right. So let me go ahead and pull this back up. So technology alone doesn't create engagement, obviously, but when the systems are designed around people, they support the culture that we want to build. Giving teams access to information allows employees and those teams to become more confident in the process, which ultimately makes our jobs easier at the end of the day. It promotes transparency and inclusion where individuals felt previously that only the elite got this information. And I think that was a problem historically on our campus that, we knew these processes existed, but only the team leaders, only, the executive team, the president's cabinet, those individuals were privy to the data, the information, everything. And I think with our leadership change and leadership structure, we're becoming like, no, you might not have all the data because of, some things have to stay within, the needs of the department and everything, or needs of the unit, but understanding the process shouldn't be just for a selected individuals. Whoever wants to know and should understand it. So, lessons learned, the most important lesson I learned is you don't need to build everything at once. The best internal sites grow over time, which is what ours had. Our SharePoint site does not look like it did in the beginning, and I don't anticipate it to look like this even now, a year from now. I did not know SharePoint when I first started. My supervisor asked me to look into it, so I did. So I looked at videos, Reddit, online articles. I even asked ChatGPT every once in a while of how to make things aesthetically pleasing. How can I reword something to make it more catchy, more eye-popping, things to really promote that engagement. So really just play with the pages. The drag and drop feature is great for easily moving things around as I showed to try things out. Maybe it looks better on the left side, maybe on the right side. Should it be further up on the page or maybe lower down? That's not a priority. Organize the content on how people search. So as I mentioned, the site is a living resources, and I'm always looking to improve not just how it looks, but the type of content that is needed. So some items that I'm looking to add is expanding our deep dive videos and trainings, addressing some more of the common questions as we have evolved in our initiatives and through our processes, wanting to make sure that, they are up to date with what is happening and addressing the needs of our users. Seeing what this community has done, I'm wanting to implement doing something with Copilot that will allow us to maybe implement something where we can have a 40x wig creation and review checklist, maybe not having to utilize our workflows previously, or maybe helping with their institutional effectiveness objectives or support. I know a lot of faculty, for instance, work on things on the weekends or on the evenings, depending on their schedule, and we do have faculty teaching elsewhere. I'm obviously here 8 to 5, but maybe they have a question. And so utilizing some of that co-pilot one to answer questions when I'm not available or our staff is not available. So also having is, and this is kind of the culture that 40X has brought out of us, is creating a departmental highlight section or page to celebrate teams who are doing the work that might be going unnoticed, celebrating those wins. And then also changing that, making that place a space where we can create kind of this team of super users where members can reach out to them for help or to learn from their peers rather than our office always dictating, but seeing somebody who has a similar program, operates in a similar structure, seeing how they're doing it and doing it with excellence. And lastly, I want to continue to expand resources on our page with our initiatives as we grow and get better. Because at the end of the day, it's about progress, not perfection, and this truly is continuous improvement in action. So final thoughts. Again, this really isn't about SharePoint. SharePoint was just the tool that we use. It's really about the people, and the technology is just helping us to be able to communicate that. So making sure we design, you know, thinking of the person in mind, the human experience in mind, is what's going to help our teams moving forward. When we're intentional about it, an internal site becomes more than a place to store files. It becomes a place where people can go to learn on their own time and at their own pace, which we felt was very important. It becomes a place where they feel connected to the work and to each other, that they're not the only ones who are doing this work and they're not the only ones who are struggling with it if they are struggling with it. And having a place where they can reach out to get information so they're not suffering in silence. It also becomes a place where knowledge doesn't get lost, but continues to grow and evolve. Just like, it's showing that our office is continuing to grow. I know performance excellence gets people kind of like, well, wait a minute, they're, perfect. We're evolving just like they're evolving. Um, and that's where really the sustainability happens because when people know where to go, when things are easy to access, and when the experience feels intuitive, they're going to use it. They actually do use it. And when they use it, it supports consistency, clarity, and confidence in their work, which makes our job easier. Ultimately, we're building an environment that helps people do their best work, and that's what makes a difference. Are there any questions or anything else you would like me to deep dive? I know we still have some time on here. I'm happy to go back to other pages or other things to show in more detail.
Thank you so much, Abigail. Any other questions for her? Or anything y'all want to know? I did think of one other question, but I don't want to steal somebody's time. My question was, I know you mentioned this on the 4DX page, but the FAQs and things like that, or those FAQs that y'all actually got from staff as y'all were introducing this and like that you heard, or were those things from Franklin Covey, or where did y'all get those questions from?
Those are the questions. So we have 40X coaches that
Hmm.
do help, out and everything. And so I asked my coaches, because we do meet weekly, we have our own wig. We have our own
Hmm.
scoreboard that we maintain as coaches. So in our conversations and everything, I said, okay, what are the major questions that you get asked all the
Hmm.
time and that you're annoyed about having to answer all the time? And
Yeah.
so some of the ones we were able to do. So let me go
Hmm.
back to that page. And so this was first it started out the biggest one was that one I showed was do we actually have to have a physical scoreboard?
Uh-huh.
But some of these one and then can my team get access to it? We're limited on licenses, so explaining that on there. But some of the ones of here was putting out of office. This has a new one that has been added. We do look at process adoption scores and
Hmm.
everything. And so once our president started looking at that and celebrating teams who had high process adoption. Then the questions came, well, how do I improve mine? How do I get on the president's radar? How do I get
Right.
recognized? And so being able to show that and being able to show what it is and explain what that is on there. And so A lot of times, and I've noticed this with, at least for 40X, I don't think this is any other page, but
Mm-hmm.
this seems to help more of our 40X coaches than the team leads a lot of times. Because our
Mm-hmm.
40X coaches, they're having to repeat this information all the time. And so instead of them having to type it out and everything like that, they can say, "Hey, go to this section, look at this video. Here's
Right.
this." They can copy it, put it in the email and everything, so it helps save them time. Our coaches, they do get a small stipend
Mm-hmm.
for the work that they do, but this is in addition to, their regular roles. They are not hired solely as a 40X coach. So, in addition to their normal whirlwind and day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
work that they're having to do, they're also serving as these kind of a liaison between me and the teams. We have 142 teams within the software. It's a lot of goals, a lot of wigs to be able to do it. I'm our head coach and pretty much the administrator of this. And so I can't see everything all at once and I can't be
Yeah,
available all at once. So it gives them, and I feel like our coaches utilize it more to be able to help communicate things, share those resources rather than having to let me schedule a meeting, let me do this, especially
yes,
when their time is tight.
for sure. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was also a question in the chat about how you started learning SharePoint and if you had any resources for someone who wants to explore and learn more.
So I did utilize, was it LinkedIn Learning? Our
Mm-hmm.
campus did have a subscription when we first launched this, which would have been around 2022, 2023. We no longer have that link anymore. That's license, university-wide license. So at the time, I did utilize some of those videos. Those were helpful. And then when we lost that license, I said, okay, let me take a look to this. So YouTube was great of looking
Mm-hmm.
at things. Whenever problems came up, because one of the things that I had noticed on here was because of the type of the license we had, some of the things, if you went on LinkedIn Learning or you went on Microsoft Office, they were like, oh, yeah, you can do this real easily. Just click here, do this, edit
Mm-hmm.
that. And then when I tried to do it, either those things were not an option or it blocked me because it said system administrator access needed. And so, because of our type of license, it didn't necessarily help with that. So, Reddit was a really good place also to look at those to see if other people were having problems
Mm-hmm.
and things. And then I did utilize ChatGPT of this is the content, this is what I want to put on there. How can I make this organized that's, you know, clean, simple, engaging, things like that, and helping with that kind of stuff. And ChatGPT, I mean, if ChatGPT ever becomes a sentient being or whatever, I know mine, and I do personify it, it's a she. She is
Uh-huh.
gonna come and kill me because I'm always yelling at her about stuff, and I'm like, no, I need you to give me step by step, or no,
Right.
give me the source for that. I want sources. Don't
Right.
just give me a number. So her and I fight a lot. But sometimes I've utilized it to help. And so some of the things, and this is where I was like, our frequently asked questions, I was like, it's a lot and it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
content to scroll down. And so that's where it suggested doing the expandable headings. So that way it just shows those key ones by default. They're minimized, but they can go, they can click, and they can see the areas that they want.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about your ChatGPT because my go-to is always pretend like I know nothing. It's always in there. And I will say too, depending on where you live, I know my public library locally has LinkedIn Learning. So if your university
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
have it, maybe your local library does.
I'll
Um,
check.
but another question was, how are you managing the permissions, or does your IT do it? If you are, can you talk about how simple or complex those might be?
So with it, certain pages, one of the ones is our reaffirmation resources page. That is very much limited to those individuals who were helping us write the report and everything. But all the other pages, pretty much, we have all faculty and staff in there. There is with our IT, I guess it's an email list or whatever. It's faculty at tamuk.edu, staff at tamuk.edu. And I was able to put that email there and it pulls whoever is listed in that email. Um, path, I guess. I don't know what the technical term is it because IT set that up. We have that access to them. Now there are certain pages that are limited, and those are manual permissions, but usually that's to a very small cohort of
Mhm.
people, um, like our executive leadership team, things like that. But by default, most of our pages, it's all faculty and staff. Data starts getting um, a little complicated, but and most of the ones like we have. Um, Our institutional research one, see, very basic, compared to some other ones that they're building. But we do have these Power BI apps that we have available where they can launch it. We do explain when those refresh schedules are and access controls. So it'll launch it, take them directly to Power BI, but within Power BI, our institutional research and analytics team maintains those. So everybody, all faculty and staff can see the WIG progress. That's our progress on our overall university WIG, being transparent with it. But the Common Data app, because it deals with academic performance, is really
Mm.
restricted to those academic affairs personnel, program coordinators, department chairs, college deans. It's not really open to there. But all the faculty and staff can see that we do have dashboards available for this, and they can request that information if they want to.
Thank you. Another question we got was, if your university, it's not completely related, but tangentially, Beth had asked if your university had ended your LinkedIn Learning subscription, have they replaced it with anything, or have they not replaced it at all?
They have not replaced it. I think our employee services, our HR, has developed their own kind of trainings for it, but it's more of the soft skills
Mm.
of just managing customer service, things like that. I know there has been, because I have been a member in the past of our staff council and everything, this push for these technical skills. Our IT team, they're great in that they're very knowledgeable, but they're not really great teachers. They're not really good and they're not made for that, I guess, to be able to teach how to use these products. They'll get you set up, they'll get you the access, and everything like that, but not really training on those. We don't necessarily have a space on campus to do it. It is kind of those things. And when we do have individuals, I know a couple of departments, they saw our SharePoint page. They were like, we want to do that for our internals. And so I've kind of worked with them with it. I'm very much of the mentality of I'm gonna break it to see. I'm just gonna try it, and if it breaks,
Yeah.
then it breaks. Luckily, I guess maybe the administrative IT has blocked certain things, so I can't totally wreck things. But I will force it, and I'll try to see if I can do certain things. But no, unfortunately, we didn't replace it. I think that was one of the downfalls with it. But I don't think enough of our staff, faculty, even our students, because it was our students also who had LinkedIn Learning as well, they were not utilizing it as well, but I don't think we marketed it as well. I don't think employees understood what they could actually use it for. And when I tell them, yeah, I learned SharePoint because I looked at some of those videos, you know, maybe not all of them, but some of them are really good. Some of them were, yeah, okay. But really, those technical ones of click here, do this or whatever, those are really good.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions for Abigail? Any final thoughts that you want to share, Abigail? Thank you so much for showing it to us. It looks beautiful, and I know you worked really hard on it.
Thank you. Again, just play with it. I mean, it's okay if it's very basic in the beginning, and there's not a lot of content on there. That's how our started out with. And then we eventually built on it, did it. I asked for a lot of feedback from our coaches,
Mhm.
specific people on campus that I knew would give me honest, constructive criticism for it, that actually utilize the page. A lot of people were like, "Well, I don't like the page," and I'm like, "Well, what do you like not specifically about it, and or what could I update?" I don't know. I've never been on it. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me. So you'll get all different kinds of users with it, but just play with it and see. It's really easy to I don't want to mess with OIR's pages. I can mess with my own pages. But you can click the edit, mess around with it as much as you need to, pulling in things, adding sections, deleting sections. I think this is real easy to go and then you can save and close, which doesn't publish it, but you can go back into it. So if I only have an hour to work on it, do what I can, save it and close. And I've done it where I put it on here, save it, come back the next day, and I'm like, this kind of looks stupid. Or I don't think that this was, I don't know what I was thinking. Let me redo it. And then I can just jump back in and do that on there. And then so you can save those. You can discard changes. You can undo things on there. So if you like, I completely messed up this page, discard, and I think you can, where was it? Yeah, you can go back to your versions and see. I wonder if it'll let me go back to the very beginning. Well, you can see all my different drafts of going back and forth, back and forth. Let's see if I go all the way to the bottom. I wonder if it'll let me pull it. Oh, see, it was a completely different page. So this was completely, okay, this was the published page that we had, the version one. So this is when, I think this is right when we started. So we didn't have any material. It was all Franklin Covey's stuff on here. Very basic. These were other institutions' scoreboards because we didn't have any scoreboards at the time. Uh, we had a form at one point in time that doesn't exist. So it's been in development. So see, even in the beginning, it was very basic to what it is now. So don't be discouraged if you have SharePoint pages now that you're not too sure of, like, well, it's nothing compared to what I'm doing or whatever. Build on it, play with it when you have opportunity. And I'm sure there are probably features that I haven't even discovered or implemented with it that would also, help out as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. Again, Stephanie and I will be um, meeting next month to talk about the community. So if you have any thoughts, please let us know. And we'll also be sending out the recording shortly in the eval as well. But I hope y'all have a great rest of your Wednesday and hopefully rest of your April's going well. So I'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.